So, why your favourite band do not owe you anything? I know, it's mind-blowing. Just from observing things recently on the internet, there's been this recent trend that I've noticed, especially on Twitter, that I just think needs to get nipped in the bud a little bit. I feel like something needs to be said, and it's all about this recent self-entitlement from fans. I've noticed it a couple of times, and there do seem to be quite a few reoccurring instances where this is popping up. There was a post on Facebook that I saw about a band going on tour and having to cancel some shows due to illness. There are some tweets that I saw about bands going on tour and not being able to stop to meet fans. Various bits and pieces online that equally infuriated me all. So, what do I mean when I say your favourite band don't owe you anything? By the way, in case you haven't noticed, this week's video is sponsored by the adorable Theo the puppy. Say hello because you're currently causing a very big noise because you're very hyper this morning. What I mean is that basically no matter how far you've travelled, no matter where you're from, no matter how much you paid to buy those tickets, the band does not owe you anything at all. They don't need to meet you, they don't need to say anything to you, they don't really even need to acknowledge you. All they really need to do is play their show, get into their van that they've probably been living in for a week, you know, have dirty clothes, haven't been able to have a shower, and then they can go to their next venue. And that's all they really need to be doing on that tour. So let's break this down into something more understandable. There are bands that just go on tour spending their hard-earned money, who have real jobs, real families, real people that they stay away from for ages because they want to do what they love, take time off work, you know, spend endless amounts of money getting on tour, and yet fans think they have the right to get angry at them, to get their parents on them, to send them abuse online, all because they didn't stop and say hello for 5 minutes. What it's not okay to do is to slag off your favourite band because they didn't come to see you on their tour. What it's not okay to do is to send abuse to your favourite band online because they haven't acknowledged your tweet or they haven't acknowledged the tattoo that you got of them. A lot of it I think is stemming around the fact that fans sometimes travel really far and then they get really mad that their favourite artist hasn't stopped to see them after the show or hasn't literally acknowledged that they are there. Please understand how many people go to shows, how many different people there are in that room, and in the nicest way possible, what you are in relation to those other hundreds of people. When you buy a ticket to see an artist, when did it become a meet and greet? Do you know what? It's actually funny because as I'm saying this and as I'm actually explaining this out loud, I'm coming to the realisation that this is probably now why meet and greets exist, which at first I thought were an absolutely ridiculous idea. I'm actually starting to realise now that meet and greets probably exist now because a management company had an idea after an artist got loads of abuse online from not meeting some of their fans after a show. Isn't that funny? I'm not at all trying to suggest that fans don't mean anything to the artists because it's just not true. Without the fans, there would literally be no artists. Like, they just wouldn't exist. They wouldn't be able to exist. And again, I'm not saying this is all fans because there are some people, normal people, that will go to a gig and will buy a ticket because they want to see their favourite artist, and that's pretty much all they get out of it. And they're really happy with that. But obviously, it's a very small minority of entitled fans, and I don't know where it's come from. There is this thing with the internet now where everyone just thinks that they're right and that they're owed something. The world doesn't owe you anything. Your favourite artists do not owe you anything. If you respected the artist that you apparently admired, you probably wouldn't call them an asshole for not touring your town. Guilt tripping is one of the worst things you can do to an artist because as an artist you are constantly trying to please everyone. Your inbox is full of people telling you to come to places that you have literally played 2 weeks ago because people can't be bothered to actually look up and find out when you are touring, or even if you are touring at a certain place at a certain time which is local to them, they make up some shit excuse as to why they can't go. You're constantly trying to battle with fees and time and work, all whilst you've also got fans saying that they love you but equally try and belittle you and guilt trip you into doing exactly what they want because for some reason they think that they are more important than anyone else in the world. It's really hard, and it's even harder to try and not take things personally. I just don't know if it's down to people that just aren't educated about this kind of thing. I saw something this morning which was the perfect explanation of this video and exactly what I'm talking about. Fans who think they're harmless but say really, really stupid stuff. I don't think there are any bad intentions. You know, if you're a fan, you love the artist, you want to support them, and I don't think that people do it maliciously, but they just don't get it. I'm hoping, if anything, that this video can help educate people a little bit because some of the stuff that people say to their favourite artists artist is just not okay. It's just rude. If Creeper could stop being dead and actually do a UK tour and a new album, that would be just peachy. Creeper are a band that are constantly touring and are constantly doing shows. Someone even pointed this out to them and he said, I can't make any of the small shows, so to me that's dead. Creeper quote tweeted this conversation and said that they were playing 2,000 Trees. Creeper have been playing endless shows. I personally don't listen to Creeper that much because they're not my kind of music, but you cannot deny that they have been everywhere in the media recently because they are playing shows constantly. Their PR is absolutely incredible. Whoever does their PR is an actual genius. For the past year or so, even if you didn't want to hear about Creeper, they were everywhere and they still are everywhere. So what this person is saying is, yes, they are actually aware that Creeper are actively touring and are actively playing shows. However, because none of those shows are exactly what that one tiny fan out of millions of people wants, it's not acceptable, and therefore the band are dead and are not doing anything. This couldn't have come at a better time, but is he honestly joking? Are you saying that you want a band to tour 24/7? Are you saying that you want a band to not play intimate shows and only really big shows where you can't meet them because it's not intimate? Are you saying that in order for a band to be active, they need to be releasing albums every month? I really have no idea where that tweet is leading to. How can one person think that they have that much of an impact on their entire management, their entire PR campaign? Like, part of me wonders if it's because people genuinely don't know the breakdown of costs and how expensive being in a band really is. It's an expensive hobby. It's really not the kind of thing you can do if you don't have a lot of money behind you. Or a decent paying job like loads and loads of bands do have. There are some huge bands that I know, and I know for a fact that the artists still work full time in order to take time off and then fund going back on tour and doing shows and paying for PR and music videos and recording time and stuff like that. You need money to be able to do that. I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna give you a really, really rough breakdown of costs. I've been out of the music game for quite a while, so some of these figures might be completely out there. Some of them are gonna be a bit of a guess. I'll do a bit of a Google. Let's see what we can find. Let's start off with a basic UK tour. This is going to include everything that you have to do before a tour. So that will include your PR cycle, that will include a music video, and let's, for argument's sake and saving money's sake, say that it's going to be a single that's going to be released and not an EP or an album. So go into the studio, record a single. Let's say off the top of our head that single is going to cost about, let's say roughly that single is going to be £300. That's roughly about what it was when I did it. A music video is going to need to be shot for the single. Let's say you find someone relatively cheap, about £600 for a performance-based one with maybe a little bit of narrative. So music video is going to be 600. Then let's say PR cycle. So your PR cycle is going to be about 3 months. It really depends on how long you want. You're gonna want your PR to basically send your music out to reviews, out to magazines, get all that stuff done. You have to have a hype built before you actually go on tour or you do shows. Otherwise, people aren't really gonna know. There's gonna be no buzz about it. So let's say a 3-month PR cycle is 1,500. That's about standard from what I've heard. Just for this, for argument's sake, I'm not gonna put in management or booking agents because a lot of the time, if you have a really good agent or a really good management, they will take a percentage deal. I actually kind of want to make a video on this, but let me know if you want to see that based on this video. So we're not going to put anything in for that because they will take a percentage off the guarantee for the night. Let's say you've got a 2-week tour. Say you are a medium band size. It doesn't really matter if you're headlining or supporting. It's fine. But let's say you go on tour for 2 weeks and you need to hire a van for that and someone to drive the van so that you can actually sleep and get stuff done whilst you're traveling hours and hours and hours. I've asked a couple of people, on average it's about £150. Some will go up to 170 with the driver. We're gonna say 150. So 150 times 14 for 14 days, right? That's 2,100. It's already seeming quite expensive, isn't it? And of course, there's gonna be petrol. Just in case you didn't know, the vans that the tour driver has to drive in don't come with petrol. The fee is just for the tour driver to actually drive you around. So on a 2-week tour, I'm gonna try and find out an average of what people would spend on petrol and add that. I'm gonna try and roughly work it out. Let's say you're literally going from Scotland to Brighton, because chances are, if you're doing a tour of that length, you are at some point gonna hit that high and you are gonna hit down low. And of course, you have to take into consideration the petrol costs, because there's no point doing a show in Brighton and then the next day going up to Scotland and then coming back down to down south again. What would be the point? Right, so that's 597 miles. So I'm going to go on Journey Planner, which is something I use a lot. This will base it off a car, not a van, so it will be more expensive. Let's say there's 7 people, for example. This is going to base it off a car, not a van. So it says £83 for the journey from literally Brighton to Scotland, not including any stops. I'm going to double that. I know it's going to be way more because there will be loads of stops and you'll go off route when you need to stay at people's houses, things like that. But let's just do it for video's sake. I'm not going to include a merch guy because a lot of bands do that themselves, but we will include a photographer. Let's say they're a fairly cheap photographer and they want to go out for £70 a day. I know some people that are learning and they go out for like £30 a day, but I also know that a lot of pro photographers will go out for way more, like over £100 a day. I'm going to say 70. So £70 times 14 days. 980, right? Food, I'll add. If it was me personally going on tour, I would always try and go to a supermarket and I would buy stuff in bulk, and I would just either bring food with me if I managed to come home, or I would buy things like bread from a supermarket and I would make food myself. There will be times when people go out for free food or they eat food on the rider. Let's say you spend on average £7 on food a day, £98. I'm leaving out merchandise on the basis that the band already has merch, but if they won't, you know, a rough order would cost easily up to £2 for a full stock of merch, easily. And that's coming from someone who orders really, really low quantities of stock. And you know what? Let's say that you can't get a floor to crash in one night. There's gonna be like 5 band members, crew. Let's say that you spend £70 for 4 of the nights. 70 times 4 is 280. Tour manager as well if needed, so someone who is just there to make sure that everything is running and that the band don't have to worry about it. To be honest, never hired one, don't actually know how much they cost, but I'm not gonna add it in here because this is already pretty expensive. So let's add up all the basics right now. So there we go, that's already over £6. The food will need to be multiplied by however many people are in the band if they choose to eat out. I really hope that people are starting to get the picture to see how expensive this is. Bearing in mind, a lot of the budgets that I chose for this are minimal. I'm talking like, you know, people that have just started their career, photographers who want to go out for cheap, people that aren't really charging that much. So number one, imagine that if everything was doubled, and number two, imagine that if one person had to pay that. When people tell me or try and start an argument with me or get angry at me about why am I not coming to the US or why will I not tour in Australia, maybe that'll give you a bit of an idea. So seeing other people complain to their favorite bands and having a go at them on Twitter and trying to start an argument, it makes me so furious because I just think, how do you not understand like the logistics of it? Do you not understand how expensive it is? I recently saw a post on Facebook and Hayley Williams had to cancel one of her shows because she literally was ill and couldn't sing. Paramore had released a statement and one of the top comments was the most infuriating comment that I think I've ever read, and it was a guy who was from the country, I think it might have been Indonesia. It was quite obvious that Paramore shows don't happen in this country more often, and the top comment from this guy was basically just a huge paragraph as to how Hayley needs to basically check what she's doing and she needs to think about the fans that she's disappointing. If I am ever so ill that I need to cancel a show, you can bet that my health comes before anyone else, and any fan, any genuine real fan should understand that. When an artist cancels a show, they're not doing it lightly, they're not doing it to piss people off. Yes, it sucks if your favourite artist cancels a show, I get that. I get that you've spent money, I get that you've travelled. As an artist, if I ever saw someone trying to guilt trip me or make me feel bad for choosing my health over a show, I just can't understand how little respect that person would have for you. I just think it's disgusting. If you take anything away from this video, please follow your favourite artist, keep up to date with what they're doing, have a little bit of compassion, have some respect, and try not to expect the whole world from your favourite artist because they are trying everything that they can, and it can be so difficult. The amount of times I used to see in my own band or see in other bands, people would put up photos after recaps of shows, and then you'd get a comment right underneath the photo that you've just uploaded saying, hey, why haven't you come to this city? And it would be a city that you were at last week. Again, it seems like a really tedious and meaningless thing to do, but for an artist to see that, it's so frustrating because it's constant. It's every single week that they have comments like that, and every single week they get messages saying, why aren't you playing my town? I don't understand why you're playing this venue but you're not playing next to me. all because the fan hasn't actually bothered to look for anything. Now I get the exact same thing when it comes to videos. I get people messaging me left, right and centre saying, oh my God, you haven't uploaded in ages. Why haven't you uploaded anything? When am I gonna see new content? It would be great if you actually decided to, you know, upload something. And I asked them, when was the last time you actually checked my YouTube channel? Turns out they haven't actually bothered to look at it for 3 weeks. I upload weekly and I don't need people claiming that they are my #1 fan who can't actually be bothered to check my content before they message me trying to have a moan at me. Respect your bands. You need to understand that they're people as well. And you need to understand that a lot of them work endless hours in order to fund something that is a huge, huge passion for them. And I think that people just need to understand that acting the way that they do, like they're entitled and like they are owed something, and like their favourite artist is the worst person in the world because they didn't stop to say hello, it's gonna make them want to quit what they love doing. And honestly, sometimes that pressure can amount to bands breaking up. You also cannot get annoyed at artists who won't come outside and say hey to you or have a photo taken with you, because stuff is just happening 24/7, and when you're on tour, it's so busy. You're running around trying to remember things, trying to set up, trying to ensure that you can fit everything into that limited amount of time. By the time a band have actually got to a venue, you have to remember that they've probably been traveling for hours in a van. They're hot, they're sweaty, they probably haven't had a chance to have a break or get food, and then it is straight on to loading everything into a venue, sound check. So if your favourite band can't say hey to you at one gig, don't take it personally, and don't go on Twitter or Instagram or DM your mates and tell them how outraged you are and how stupid the band is for not saying hey to you. This band are putting everything, they're putting hours, they're putting endless amounts of money that they work incredibly hard for, and to have it thrown back in their face because someone on Twitter thinks that they're no longer nice musicians because they didn't say hey for 5 minutes or because they didn't sign a photo is ridiculous. If you want to ensure that, get a VIP meet and greet. If it comes to it, do you really want to become part of the reason that your favourite band broke up? Just something to think about. I just think it's something people need to keep in mind when they're going off on their Twitter rants. So I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one.